everyone. Welcome back to our AAC video training series. This is the second video in the series. The videos in this series build on each other, so if you missed the first video, I would highly recommend going back and watching that one first. It was an introduction to AAC and language development. Then come back and watch this one. It'll make a lot more sense. This second AAC training video will teach you how to model language to students using AAC and help you understand why modeling AAC to our students is so vitally important to their becoming successful communicators. So I hope you're excited to learn with me today. Let's get started. In this video, we're going to discuss what modeling is and how do you do it, why modeling is so important, and we're going to give you some tips on how to model language using AAC effectively to make it fun for you and your students. So let's quickly review the language development pyramid concept from our first AAC training video. This pyramid illustrates how language naturally develops, whether that language is English, French, Chinese, or AAC. The bottom of the pyramid is receptive language. Receptive language is observing how other people use language. In this stage of language development, we're just hearing and seeing the people around us, and we may not say anything at all. We're just soaking it all in while people around us model how to use the language in lots of different situations and environments. The next level is expressive language. Once we have enough experience with observing other people use the language in interactive ways, we begin to use the language ourselves. Other people respond to our attempts to use the language, and it shapes, for better or for worse, our future efforts to communicate in that language. And then at the top of the pyramid is independent communication. This stage is only reached after a lot of positive experience and practice with receptive and expressive language. It often takes years to work your way up the language pyramid to become an independent communicator. As we discussed in our first training video, the only way that language can truly develop is if students have lots of chances to see and hear the people around them use the new language to communicate. The more the people around them model the new language, the better students will learn that language. This same principle applies to modeling language using an AAC system. The more that students see others around them model how to use the AAC system to communicate, the better they will learn to use that AAC system themselves to communicate with the people around them. So we just barely learned that the more students see other people around them model how to use AAC to communicate, the better they will learn to use it themselves. So the question is, how do you model AAC for students? Well, it's pretty simple. You just talk to students like you normally would, while simultaneously pointing to corresponding pictures on the student's AAC system. For example, let's say it's almost time to go to lunch. You might say to the student, "It's time to go to lunch," while also pointing to the go symbol on the student's communication system. Or you can tell the student, "I like that," while also pointing to the like symbol on the AAC system. You're just talking to them normally while also pointing to corresponding pictures. Here's a few other things to remember when modeling AAC. Only point to one or two pictures on the AAC system for every phrase you speak. You don't need a picture for every word you say. Trust me, it takes too long and you'll drive yourself and your students crazy trying to match up every word you say to a symbol on the AAC system. One or two symbols per phrase is plenty to start showing the student how communication with AAC works. Also, don't demand that students respond to your models. Remember that it's okay for them to just take it all in at this point. Always remember that the main goal of modeling language is to develop the bottom layer of the language pyramid. We want a good, strong base so that the rest of the language can develop over time. So to help all this make sense to you, let's watch a video clip of a teacher modeling communication using AAC to his student while they're looking out the window and talking about what he sees. In this video, the teacher is using a high-tech AAC app on an iPad placed between the two of them. The video zoomed in so you can see how the teacher points to buttons on the iPad app as he talks normally to the student. What do you see?
What's see?
What do we see out there? I see a cool red car. Let's see, things, vehicles. There it is. Car.
I see car.
I see a cool red car out there. It's describe colors. It's red.
Red.
I see a red car. It's fun to go in a car. Describe. Fun.
Go fun.
It's fun to go in a car. Do you like to go in a car?
Like.
Do you like to go? Yeah. Me too. I have, you know what kind of car I have? I have things, vehicles. I have
minivan.
a minivan.
I have minivan.
I like it.
I like.
I like it. Okay, did you notice what the teacher did in that video? A couple things I want to point out. He just talked normally while simultaneously pointing to symbols on the AAC app on the iPad. He didn't try to match every word he said to a picture on the page. He used 1, 2, or maybe 3 symbols per phrase to get the point across. And he never expected the student to respond using the AAC system. The student was free to learn by simply watching the teacher and taking it all in. So is it ever okay to require the student to touch buttons while we're modeling AAC? The answer is usually no. The problem with requiring students to point to symbols on the AAC system while they're still learning it is it puts a lot of pressure on them to perform, and all that pressure can build up and start to foster negative feelings about the AAC system in the student's mind. Putting a lot of pressure on students to perform or to prove themselves with an AAC system is one reason why some students end up rejecting it, and that's something we definitely want to avoid. It's better to inspire students to want to touch buttons because they've watched you model it and see how fun and engaging it can be. Now, there are some students who may need a little encouragement to start to point to symbols on their AAC system, so it can be okay to gently encourage them to do so and provide reinforcement when they do it. But please make sure to do it in such a way that you are not putting pressure on them to perform, but you're merely inviting them to do so if they choose to. So, bottom line, when it comes to students using the AAC system themselves instead of just watching, remember to inspire, but don't require. So why is modeling AAC so important for our students to learn to become true communicators? It all goes back to that language development pyramid that we've been talking about. When we model AAC for students throughout their day, we're giving them the receptive language experiences they need so that eventually they can move to the middle layer of the pyramid. The more models they see and hear from their teachers, friends, parents, and even siblings, the easier it will be for them to use AAC to express their own wants, needs, opinions, and feelings in time. So imagine in your head for a minute a large stone pyramid with a teeny tiny base at the bottom. What's going to happen to that pyramid? Well, of course it's going to topple over. It doesn't have a strong base to support it. This concept applies to the language pyramid as well. Language won't develop if you don't have enough receptive language experience at the bottom. That concept is true whether the language is Spanish, French, German, Chinese, or AAC. If students don't have lots and lots of opportunities to observe others use that language, the rest of the pyramid will suffer and students will never become independent communicators. This is why modeling language using AAC is so important. We need to model it to our students as often as we can. We also need to remember that learning language takes time. Jane Corsten, an AAC researcher, stated once that the average 18-month-old child has been exposed to 4,380 hours of oral language at a rate of 8 hours a day from birth. A child who has a communication system and receives speech-language therapy 2 times per week for 20 to 30-minute sessions will reach that same amount of language exposure in, get this, 84 years. Now, you can't argue with the math here. If we only model AAC for our students an hour or so a week, it will literally take decades for them to reach the same amount of language exposure that babies naturally reach by 18 months. So since we don't get to teach our students for 80 plus years, it's really vitally important that we model AAC for them as often as we can throughout their day at school, at home, everywhere they are. Okay, here's a few more tips to help you model AAC effectively to your students. Again, only point to 1 or 2 pictures for every phrase you speak. Trying to point to too many pictures at a time takes too long and can be frustrating. Focus on conveying the main idea with 1 to 2 pictures. For example, if you say it's time to go to lunch, there's a lot of words in there that you could point to, but maybe you're just going to point to go, because that's what you're trying to emphasize, is that we're going someplace else. Don't require a student to respond to your models. Remember, it's okay for them to just observe. If they do respond, reward them for sure, but don't put pressure on them to feel like they have to respond. Now, avoid asking too many questions when you talk to students. Asking lots of questions is unnatural and it tends to put people on the spot. Make sure you mix it up by also modeling opinions like, I like that, or that's so cool, or man, I hate that. Or comments such as, oh, I see a red car outside. You could also tell jokes, say hello and goodbye, please and thank you. A good rule of thumb when you're talking to students and modeling is to make 4 statements for every 1 question you ask. That's a pretty good ratio in a conversation. Now this one's super important. Make it fun for your students. Talk about fun things that are interesting. If the language you model is interesting and fun, then students will be more attentive and engaged. It can be really helpful to have fun things around you to talk about, like games, toys, videos, pictures, books is another good example. And at a very minimum, shoot for modeling at least 5 times during every activity with a student. We're just trying to get as many opportunities as we can to show them how AAC works so that eventually they can start to use it themselves. Now, as you model AAC for your students, you're going to find that sometimes you can't always find the picture you want on the AAC system. While this can be frustrating, there's ways to work around this. Here's a couple of those ideas. Look for alternative pictures that mean the same thing. For example, if you're saying to the student that this is the best, maybe you're just going to point to good on their system. Or if you're saying that's awesome, maybe you're just going to point to like, because you don't want to dig through the folders and files to find the word awesome. But like means pretty much the same thing. If they have a high-tech device, you could use a search feature that are on many systems to type in the word and find out where that symbol is. You could try spelling the word, or you could rephrase what you're saying verbally so that it more closely matches a picture on the AAC system. And sometimes it's okay to skip the picture and move on. Don't get so hung up on pointing to pictures on the AAC system that you forget to just talk and make it fun. Not being able to find the exact picture you want is common to the AAC experience, and when you model any of these alternative strategies, you're modeling skills that students will need to become successful communicators. Learning to communicate using AAC is messy and frustrating sometimes, and it's really good for our students to see that it's not always easy for us either. So we're going to watch a few more examples of modeling for students, and specifically when you can't find the words you want in the system. We're going to see one video of a person using the search feature to find the symbol they want. We're going to find one of they wanted to use the word Oreos and they couldn't find it, so they chose an alternative word that was available instead. What did you do this weekend? We went outside.
We go out. We go out.
We went outside. We went to the beach.
We go.
Oh, places. Where's beach on your device? I don't see it. Let's search for it. There it is, beach. So I touch things, nature,
Beach.
beach.
We go beach.
We went to the beach. It was fun.
It good. It good.
What do you want to eat?
Eat. Eat.
Oh, I know what I want. I want some of those Oreos that are in the pantry. I want
Cookie.
Oreos.
I want cookie.
I want some of those Oreos. How about you?
You.
Thank you for watching all of those. Let's review what we've learned to wrap up this video. Modeling AAC just means talking normally to your students while simultaneously pointing to pictures on the AAC system. Modeling AAC builds the base of that language development pyramid, which is so important for the rest of the language to develop. It's okay to only point to 1 or 2 pictures for every phrase you speak. Trying to point to too many pictures is going to be frustrating and take too much time. Don't expect or require students to respond to your models. It's perfectly fine for them to just watch and learn. A good rule of thumb is to make 4 statements for every 1 question that you ask when you're talking to students. And please, please, please make it fun. Talk about fun things, tell jokes, be silly. It's okay to make mistakes, make it fun. And shoot for modeling at least 5 times during every activity. The more we model AAC for our students, the faster they're going to learn it. Modeling AAC is a gift that we give them every single time we do it, so we need to do it all the time. Okay guys, thank you so much for watching this video. We hope you enjoyed it and learned a lot. Be sure to check out our other AAC training videos as well.